The trending story on Facebook today, it's the number one. It's been posted to the top of Facebook. Think about how many people that reaches. Millions of people, maybe tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people. And the story is, Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico killed 4,600 people. It doesn't say on the trending topic, it doesn't say estimated, it doesn't say maybe, doesn't say possibly. It says killed 4,600 people. So if you're me or you're you or you're just a random Facebook user, you're thinking, oh my goodness, I heard the toll was 64 people died, and now Facebook is telling me for a fact that 4,600 people died in Puerto Rico. That's a huge increase. I mean, that's bad. That's bad on President Trump, bad on America, bad on the Puerto Rican government, bad on our authorities. How did that number come about? So I'm going to break down exactly where that number came from, because it's incredibly misleading and it's incredibly embarrassing that they don't explain that for people. So everyone just regurgitates that news, and that's how fake news spreads, ladies and gentlemen. So to start it off, I do want to say there's two different sides of this argument. The government of Puerto Rico and possibly the government of the United States, they might try to underestimate the number and put out a lower number to make themselves look better. And things like New York Times and Washington Post and CNN and now Harvard University, they'll do the exact opposite. They'll do studies like this to try to blast it. Unfortunately, they do that because it goes along with their narrative of like, oh my God, President Trump's killing, Spanish people. So, and so to be honest, I want to say I don't know the exact official number, but I can tell you this number came from a Harvard study. And I just want to remind people, Harvard University, which used to be a very well-respected Ivy League school, has now fallen as honestly one of the most embarrassing and delusionally biased politically affiliated schools in the country. I would say it's pretty much number one now, after they gave Hillary Clinton some sort of award for societal transformation, breakthrough society. Hillary Clinton gets an award, which is just embarrassing. And then they did a segregated award ceremony. So this is Harvard just in the past 2 weeks. They self-segregated their own college, which is just disgusting in 2018 to have your own sort of little segregated party. And then by race, that's disgusting. That's exactly what Martin Luther King didn't want. But they did that, and they gave Hillary Clinton an award. So, of course, this week they came out with this huge breakthrough study that, 4,600 people died in Puerto Rico. Do they know that for sure? Absolutely. No, they admit themselves they don't know that for sure. That's why I don't know why Facebook would even have that as the number one trending story without explaining it or properly titling it to say maybe, because they absolutely have no idea if that's true or not. Their whole study is they went to around 3,200 houses in Puerto Rico. They claimed that there was they had some sort of formula to go to random houses in Puerto Rico. And what they did is they talked to one adult in the house. So just a random Puerto Rican adult in the house. They questioned them for 10 minutes. They asked about their age. They asked about their gender, about infrastructure and household. And then, they asked, I guess, how many people either died in their household or how many people died that they know. And basically, they found out in their totally porous study, they didn't check with authorities. They didn't find documentation or body footage or anything. They just literally went along with the person was saying. So they found out this is the Harvard study. This is the one that's posted trending on Facebook. Tag somebody in this if they're freaking out saying, oh my God, there's 4,600 bodies. No, there's not. Hopefully there's not that many. But, like I said, I don't know for sure. But this is their study, folks. They found that in 3,200 houses, after asking one adult for approximately 10 minutes, that 32 people that they had known had died or died in relation to the storm. So they didn't even confirm those 32 to 34 people or however many people that they say died. They didn't even do a background research to make sure that those 3,200 households weren't lying, or they weren't crossing over who died from what, or maybe it didn't happen from natural causes as opposed to something related to the hurricane. They didn't even check any sort of mortality rate on an official scale, and they took that number and multiplied it so that it reached the entire population of Puerto Rico. So they don't even know if those 32 people died, let alone this 4,600 number that they're claiming, because they never even tried to check. They did a small poll of 3,000 houses, didn't check on body count, just went by word of mouth and what they said, and then multiplied it by, 80 or 90 or whatever the amount was to equal the entire population of Puerto Rico. And it's no surprise to me when the official count came out under 64. There were two news sites that did their independent poll, which was, I think, New York Times did one, and they found out they think 1,000 bodies were found, and same with CNN. They said between 500 and 1,000, and now all of a sudden that's not big enough. That's not a big enough fear tactic, fear monger for them, or anti-Trump narrative. It doesn't push enough. So then they went out and got Harvard, I guess, to do an independent study, or publish an independent study that like 8 doctors did, and they asked 3,200 households with their failing poll tactics. And this is what they do in Washington Post and New York Times all the time. They ask 1,000 people via landline. They say, how do you feel about this? And they give their answer, and then they take that number and they multiply it to equal 322 million. And then they claim that 70% of people believe in the Mueller investigation. It's like, where'd you get those numbers? So it's not at all true. And I'm not saying, I don't know if 64 people died via hurricane. I don't know if 8,000 people died via hurricane. I'm not saying that I have the direct answer, and I'm not trying to downplay, and I want people to help people in Puerto Rico. I want people to find out the truth, but I just find that this is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly misleading and honestly just straight up fake news, that Facebook would have their trending story for an entire 24 hours be 4,600 people dead in Puerto Rico. They have no proof of that. They have no body count. They have no certification of it. Literally, they just have Harvard doctors that asked, I guess, people in Puerto Rico their thoughts on it, and then multiplied the number to equal the amount. And who knows if where they were asking people was one of the places that got damaged the most. Who knows if they were telling the truth? Who knows if they were overlapping and this and that. It's just, I mean, it's just so embarrassing to me that this is the type of reporting that they have come to conclude. And unfortunately, I don't make excuses for people. I really do want to figure out what the Puerto Rican people need and how I could help and how other people can help. But what's so sad about nowadays, and it happens on both sides of the scale, it's not just liberal, it happens conservative-wise sometimes too. But I'm finding in Puerto Rico, right from the jump, unfortunately, there were Democrat politicians there, and anybody who hates Trump, they weren't even allowing there to be a situation to figure out, like, how do we help the Puerto Rican people? How many people are dying? How do we get their electricity back? It was just 100% effort to blame everything on Trump and literally just say it's his fault, the body count stacking. So unfortunately, I wish there were credible journalists and they were doing credible studies, but I know they're not, because Harvard just gave Hillary Clinton a Transformative Society Award, and I guess because she killed the leader of Libya and left a power vacuum for slave trade and organ harvesting, that somehow justifies an award, and they're self-segregating their own college. So no offense, but I can't trust a word that they say when they're that ridiculously biased to give Hillary an award and then to segregate their own students. I mean, that's just pathetic. And then, New York Times and Washington Post, I've been studying their polls and CNN polls all year, and they poll 600 to 1,200 people and then multiply the number by 100,000 and think that that's some sort of credible argument. And that's exactly what Harvard University did and immediately published it in the New York Times. It's just a circle jerk of their own political beliefs. And I call it, because I don't care if you like Trump, I don't care if you hate Trump, I don't care if you want to help Puerto Rico, you should, but there's something that people call Trump derangement syndrome, and unfortunately I wish it wasn't true, because it's not about President Trump, it's about the Puerto Rican people, it's about saving people, but there is a Trump derangement syndrome out there where people are incapable of processing a multi-layered argument, and their obsession is just to blame the whole thing on President Trump. I had one of my good friends go out to Puerto Rico and take pictures and try to help people, and he was complaining and saying the infrastructure here is terrible, it's Trump's fault, and I literally just said, I was like, dude, Trump just got into office last year. Their infrastructure is a decade-old problem. He didn't build the infrastructure in Puerto Rico. He's not in charge of their infrastructure and what it was like for decades. And my friend literally freaked out at me and said, blah, 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 blah. I was like, dude, I'm not saying that Trump's not to blame. I'm not saying that he doesn't have some responsibility in Puerto Rico. I'm just saying he didn't build the infrastructure. He didn't. I mean, that's been going on for the Bush administration, the Obamas, the Clintons. I mean, who knows how long they haven't built the infrastructure in Puerto Rico, but to blame that on Trump when he wasn't even there a year, that's totally irrational. And that's all I was saying. I don't care if he puts some blame on Trump, but that's what they do. And unfortunately, that's what Harvard will do. That's what the New York Times and CNN and Washington Post will do. I wish they didn't. I wish I could believe their poll. I wish I could tell you that number was 100% real. But I could tell you that it's not. I'm 100% sure that it's not accurate, because I know for a fact the most deaths that they even can claim that they know are 100% true is 30-something, 32 to 34 deaths, and they don't even know that. They know that based on asking people, talking to them for 10 minutes, going to households and asking them about age, gender, and deaths, and that's their credibility. And then they multiply that number to equal the population of Puerto Rico. And we found time and time again, this is not an accurate way to poll things. It just doesn't ever work like that, especially in areas where the mortality rate of people dying, because it's not really spread across that. I mean, you go to the south side of Chicago and ask for the mortality rate, and then you go to the north side or the east side or whatever, it's not going to be the same. Unfortunately, I wish it was all safe, and I'm not hating on any sides of Chicago, but that's just not a credible way to figure out, and then multiply the number by like 10,000. You're never going to get an accurate result, especially if you didn't even take the time to check if those 30 deaths that you claim are real, if you didn't even check the time to show proof of that. But they don't want to show proof, folks, and this is what I'm saying. I don't care if you're the most liberal person on the planet, but I would hope that you care about truth and you care about accuracy. And these news publications and now these college universities, they don't care about accuracy. They don't care about the truth. They have a narrative to push. So they threw this little stupid poll together, which probably took them like less than a month to do. Then they shoved it out in New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN, and then they picked it up on Facebook, and now they have their narrative. They don't care if 4,600 people are really dead, are they? Did that happen? Are they trying to help the people of Puerto Rico? Of course not. They don't care. They have that narrative that they're pushing, so now they could use that, and now everybody believes that that's true, even though it's not true. So I just wanted to say this. This is literally how propaganda works. This is how, the Nazi propagandist of Germany, this is literally his bread and butter. And I'm not comparing Facebook to the Nazi propagandist of Germany. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not saying CNN and Washington Post are at that level. I'm not saying that. But I am saying this is the strategy of top propagandists. It's in their own handbook. They tell you it doesn't matter if it's true or not, but if people will repeat the lie long enough, it becomes the truth. If people will repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, then it becomes the truth, and it doesn't matter what the truth is. This is like the number one playbook out of the top propagandists in modern history. This is exactly what they did. So, it doesn't matter that it's not true. Literally, Facebook's statement is false because they didn't say maybe. Even New York Times, even the Washington Post had the decency to say maybe and possibly and probably and could be. They don't care about accuracy whatsoever, but even they had the decency to tell people that it's not accurate and that it's possible and it's probable and it's, maybe. But Facebook being, what I'm saying, acting like they got the featured news section, they didn't even have the decency to say maybe or possibly. They just said hurricane, exactly whatever my title is. I can't see it now because my video's up, but they said Hurricane Maria killed 4,600 people, and they have absolutely no proof and evidence. I'm not saying that possibly it didn't. Who knows as far as like long-term effects and stuff, but what I do know is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Google play this game just like Washington Post and MSNBC and CNN and New York Times. They play this game of like blasting out their narrative and lying so much that people just repeat it, and then they wonder why everybody's so twisted. So they lie to them, they repeat the lie 10,000 times, sell them pharmacy psychotropics in the commercials, and then they wonder why everybody has all these mental problems. And I'm not saying some people can't help it, or I'm not blaming all mental problems on them, but if the shoe fits, how much longer are you going to lie to people and fearmonger to people on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Google? They don't even have a shred of accountability. They don't care how many people died in Puerto Rico. I hope that they do. But this number is so outlandishly and goofily bloated, from what they can actually prove. It's just pathetic. I can't go on the street and run around the country, ask 1,000 people or 2,000 people or 3,000 people, and then take that number and multiply it to 320 million and act like I know what the American people are thinking. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work like that. The math doesn't check out. The science doesn't check out. I don't care how many fancy algorithms and, math equations they have on the Harvard website. It's just not accurate. And especially what really concerns me is the fact that Harvard University, unfortunately, I wish I could say, oh, they're genius level, they're Ivy League school, they know better than me. But I've seen, sorry, my hair's a little tangled. I've seen what they've done recently, and they gave Hillary Clinton a Transformative Societal Award, and they did a self-segregated prom that was like a black-only prom. They literally brought back segregation at Harvard University. So, they're clearly a ridiculously politically and racially driven school. And I'm part Puerto Rican. My grandma actually came from Puerto Rico. I wish I could help. I wish I knew what was going on. I have a friend living there now. He seems to think it's fine. And probably based on, how much you're in poverty versus how much money you have is, how well off you have. The infrastructure is bad. There's still not electricity, I believe, in like 5% of the houses. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying the people aren't suffering, but I just think it's really, really sad and really, really pathetic that Facebook would feature a top story saying that 4,600 people died when they have no proof and no evidence, and that total number comes from, they only asked 3,299 households. So they didn't even ask 4,000 households. They didn't even ask 4,000 people. How did they know 4,600 people died when they didn't even ask 4,600 people? Their official study was like 3,299 people, where they asked them 10 minutes worth of questions that were all across the range from infrastructure to age to gender. I mean, why are you asking them their age and gender? You can't look at them and tell their gender? Nowadays, probably not. But, it's like it was already seemed like a politically charged questioning. And then, all of a sudden they say that 30 people died via that and then multiply the number. I mean, it's totally unreliable, especially when I know who Harvard University is now, because, there were reports that during the Bernie Sanders, Jill Stein era that, some of these trusted mainstream news publications would put out a poll, and if they didn't get the results they would like, they would either delete the poll off of their website, they've done this multiple times, or they would re-poll and they wouldn't ask people that were 18 to 26 years old, because they knew when they were asking them questions about Bernie Sanders, Jill Stein, and Hillary Clinton, that 18 to 26-year-olds, majority of them like Bernie Sanders and Jill Stein more than they like Hillary Clinton. So they actually deleted the poll in certain cases in some of these trusted news publications, and then re-polled people without asking a whole bracket of people. And like I said, I wish they didn't do this. I wish I could just sit here and tell you that that's a totally accurate number, that they know more than me, and that's a strong possibility. But I find it to be highly unlikely. And I also, all I'm asking is, I wish there were some more news outlets out there and some more universities out there that actually really cared about accuracy over political agenda, and actually cared about, being statistically more honest, than not. And especially for Facebook, my main concern is not the fact that they even talked about this. My main concern is that they pitched it like it was a known fact and they had known, body count of these people, but it couldn't be further from the truth. And Facebook didn't even remotely try to explain that. They put right in their featured story like it's a known fact, and this is how fake news and propaganda spreads. And I can almost guarantee you, I can't be positive, that this is extremely politically driven, because for a long, long time, the narrative has been President Trump doesn't do enough in Puerto Rico. And I'm not saying that he is doing enough. I have no idea what he is doing. It just makes it, just like when people are irrational, you have to understand it doesn't help people, because if you blame like infrastructure on President Trump, it doesn't make me a bad person and it doesn't make you a saint. It makes you're actually hurting the Puerto Rican people, and you're actually hurting the American people, because now the truth is so skewed and everybody doesn't know up from down or left from right, that we can never get to the truth. So people think that it makes them virtuous and way more moral than me, but it actually makes you a lot less credible and a lot more damaging to safety and freedom for everybody. Because if you can't even tell the truth about 11111 and you lie just to blame it on someone you don't like, then how in the world do you think you're actually going to help the people of Puerto Rico or the people of America? You're not. It's kind of like when people scream racism, sexism, xenophobia, when it's not racism, sexism, xenophobia. Who are the number one victims to your failed ideology and your lies? It's going to be people who are victims of racism, sexism, and xenophobia, because now your false claims of them are overlapping and overshadowing, real life instances of them, which do happen all the time. And that's where we're at now. We don't know left from down. We don't know up from right. People are super, super confused. And I just want to say, regardless of what you think of these statistics and whether you think that they could be accurate or not, I'm not here to tell you they're real or fake, but I am here to tell you what Facebook won't tell you, which is they do not know for sure that there's 4,600 people dead. They know for sure that there's 64 people dead. That's the official body count. Harvard linked study asked 3,299, I believe, in that range of households. Their questionnaire, they didn't check, they didn't talk to a doctor, they didn't talk to a hospital, they didn't talk to a funeral home, they didn't talk to anything. They didn't confirm a single body according to their own report. They literally just asked people's opinions. They asked them what they knew for 10 minutes, took that number of 32 people dead. According to the people they asked, the people that 3,000 people said 32 people died, and they took that number and multiplied it to equal the entire Puerto Rican population. And we've seen time and time again with these type of polls, they're almost never true because, who did you ask? Did you ask them, did you go to a certain area? They said that it was a random. They said that they, sampled from each part of the island, and that's what they claim, but who really knows? And I'm just here to throw that out there because I don't like to see a #1 trending story reach tens of millions of people. But this is how easy it is for them to spread fake news, because when you own Facebook, when you control Facebook, Google, Twitter, YouTube, you know what I'm saying, Snapchat, now Netflix, Obama has a deal, and you control the universities, and you control MSNBC and CNN and New York Times and ABC and NBC, and you control pretty much every CNN, every network on the planet, Washington Post, New York Times, Newsweek. When you control all of these, it's easy to spread fake news. It's easy to get hundreds of millions of people to believing a fake number that isn't even remotely close to the truth or can't even be verified for 1 second. This should hopefully be an example to how easy it is for them to mislead people and why everyone's so confused, because there's very few people like myself, and there's very few people at any news organizations that even have 1 ounce of decency to try to get to you an accurate number and tell you the truth about where the number came from, if they're, instead of just using it for the headline and then lying to you in the pretext. So that's all it is. Thank you guys so much. Check out my video on Roseanne, and I guess I would say the videos about liberal are liberal celebrities, are they held to higher standards? It's going viralish right now, which is cool. But the main point is I'm just trying to get some common sense and self-accountability and hopefully some unity out of all of this madness and mess. Everyone's so upset. I'm chilling though. I'm blessed. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate your support. Follow me on Instagram at Dream Rare. Follow me on Twitter at Legendary Energy, and check the comment section or below the title to support my news analysis. I appreciate you. YouTube banned me from ad revenue, I guess. I don't know, I'm too honest, or I don't follow along with their fake news articles and their fake headlines, so now I can't make money on YouTube, and my laptop broke last week, but that's a whole side note. I'm going to have a lot of issues moving forward because, look how they treated Elon Musk. The second that he said the media was fake, even though he's a liberal, they started throwing all these conspiracy theories at him. I mean, it's going to be a hard road considering that I'm not a two-faced liar like they are. So thank you guys so much. Have an amazing day. I appreciate your love and support, even if it's just a share or a like or a comment. Thank you guys. I'll be back later this week.